Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be looking at the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now a lot of you have asked me questions on Instagram and on TikTok that should you upgrade your current iPhone 16 Pro Max to the iPhone 17 Pro Max? Is it a worthy upgrade? Is there any differences or are there any physical differences that should make you upgrade from the 16 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max? So in this video I'm going to be attempting to answer those questions, alright? Alright, so straight to the point here, the first major differences we are going to be looking at between the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the iPhone 17 Pro Max is the physical camera design right here. Now, due to the internal designs and the sizes of the camera lenses on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, according to Apple, they had to create this camera plateau here to accommodate all the internals. Outside of that, there is really no special difference between the camera design here and this one, because basically there's no additional lens. There's still the LiDAR sensor there. There's the flash, and the three camera lenses are still basically the same. So they could have just photocopied this same camera bump into this one, but because of the internal designs, according to Apple, they had to come up with this camera bump. At the end of the day, that's their excuse, but that's basically the major difference here between these two devices. And then the design at the back over here, they just created this real estate, which I think is very nice, and the charging coil resides here as well as on the 16 Pro Max. You will now notice here now that the iPhone 17 Pro Max is a little bit curved than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which I think really makes the design look fine, a little bit finer in my opinion than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And even though both devices might be the same size, it makes the iPhone 17 Pro Max feels a little bit smaller in size. Now, one of the biggest features on the 17 Pro Max that I don't really hear much talk about is the thermal cooling system on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. One of the reasons why they went from titanium on the 16 Pro Max to aluminum on the 17 Pro Max is because of the thermal cooling system, and you will really notice that when you start using both of these devices. For instance, a few minutes ago, I was just trying to do a photo shootout, just taking a few photos and doing a few comparisons here and there. The iPhone 16 Pro Max started having a rise in temperature. You know, you could just feel it physically that it was beginning to get hot or beginning to get warm, however you see it. But the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the temperature was still very normal. And a friend of mine complained yesterday that the temperature of the iPhone 16 Pro Max rises faster than that of the 17 Pro Max. And so that is one of the biggest reasons that you might want to consider upgrading from the iPhone 16 Pro Max to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the thermal cooling system. And if you're a gamer or you do any hard work that is CPU intensive, then you might want to upgrade to the 17 Pro Max because there is a better thermal cooling system and you are going to have more efficiency when it comes to using the A19 processor or the A19 chip that is on the 17 Pro Max. So basically now, when it comes to the physical features on both of these devices, both devices still have the camera control buttons, and both devices still maintain the same position for the power buttons. At the top of the devices, there's a millimeter wave antenna on top of the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which is something the iPhone 16 Pro Max does not have. Now, this millimeter wave antenna is for US versions only. If you're buying this phone in the UK and in some EU countries, you will not have the millimeter wave antenna at the top. And then at the left side of both devices, you still have the action buttons and the volume up and down keys. And so if you're asking which device has bigger camera or larger camera lenses, the camera lenses are still basically the same size, right? So even though the iPhone 17 Pro Max, all lenses are now 48 megapixels, the sizes are still basically the same. All right, so now let's talk about the display on the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the 17 Pro Max. So basically, both displays are the same thing, but with a little tweak, right? So both displays are LTPO displays. Both displays have up to 120 Hz refresh rate, aka ProMotion. So what are the differences? Now, the iPhone 17 Pro Max now has what is called an anti-reflective coating. And also the brightness of the display of the 17 Pro Max can now go up to 3000 nits. Now, mind you, this 3000 nits of brightness we are talking about is only when you are outside or when you are in a very bright environment. The display will automatically adjust itself with more brightness so that you'll be able to see it and do what you want to do, right? So outside of that, both displays are basically the same thing. Now, talking about the anti-reflective coating, you can see right now that I'm pointing the phone towards my large LED light up here. Even though you can still see the reflection on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max, but you see it's more intensive on the 16 Pro Max and less intensive on the 17 Pro Max. So that right there is one of the benefits you'll be getting if you're upgrading from the 16 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max. And if you ask me, I wouldn't spend $1,300 or $800 or whatever to upgrade from a 16 Pro Max to a 17 Pro Max because of an anti-reflective coating that you will almost never use or you almost never notice it's there on both devices. And also, the iPhone 16 Pro Max works outdoors on a sunny day just fine. Again, I will not upgrade because of 3000 nits of brightness on the 17 Pro Max. Display-wise, I would say both devices are 50-50. And then when it comes to the speakers on both devices, the speaker on the iPhone 17 Pro Max obviously sounds better than that on the 16 Pro Max. There's been a little bit of tuning of the speakers on the 17 Pro Max, and again, that is not something that is really obvious. You have to really be listening to look for it before you really find that difference. Then the next thing a lot of people have asked is, how is the battery performance of the 16 Pro Max compared to the new 17 Pro Max? The battery performance on both of these devices is very subtle, right? So the iPhone 17 Pro Max can last like an hour or an hour 30 minutes more than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and that basically depends on who is using it, of course. So all of these tests, as you can see, you can watch a lot of videos on YouTube, Mr. Who's the Boss and the rest. You notice that the 17 Pro Max lasts like an hour or an hour 30 minutes or maybe 2 hours more than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And again, these are subtle differences and subtle changes that you have to consider if you really need it to upgrade from your 16 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max. But if you're coming from like an iPhone 14, an iPhone 12, maybe an iPhone 15, then you might just want to consider jumping straight to the 17 Pro Max. But if you're using like an iPhone 16 Pro Max or an iPhone 16 Pro, an iPhone 16, then there might be no need for you to struggle to want to upgrade to the 17 Pro Max, because basically, so these days, almost every Apple keynote or every Samsung keynote always focuses on the cameras. So let's talk about the cameras here. How is the camera performance of the 16 Pro Max versus the 17 Pro Max? Again, both devices have very good cameras, right? But if you take pictures with both of them, sometimes you have to be pixel peeping to see the difference, even though all the 3 lenses on the iPhone 17 Pro Max are 48 megapixels, right? But what I have noticed is that most of the images of the 16 Pro Max compared to the 17 Pro Max are a bit noisy. You will have to zoom in, or sometimes when you look at them, you will see a lot of noise. But the thing is, if the 17 Pro Max was not there for me to look at, and it was just the 16 Pro Max that I was looking at, I think the pictures would have been just fine by me, right? They are still very great images. During the day, you might not really notice a difference between both cameras as per se. But again, these are very subtle differences that you have to really be wanting before you can go ahead with it. But the biggest camera upgrade this year is in the selfie cameras on the 17 Pro Max. The 17 Pro Max can now almost do open gate. So once you launch the selfie cameras, you will now notice that there's an extra button here. If I tap it, I can now take a horizontal image that can accommodate more people. I can take a horizontal selfie, I can take a horizontal video without having to rotate my phone, which is something that the iPhone 16 Pro Max does not have. So if I have a lot of people and I want to take selfie with them, I don't need to rotate my phone. I can just hit this button and switch to landscape mode while still holding my phone in portrait mode. And that is something that, honestly, it's really a big deal. So yeah, and the reason why this can happen is because of the kind of camera sensor, the square-shaped camera sensor, which Apple told us that it is square-shaped, but teardown videos that we've seen has actually shown that it's actually a polygonal-shaped camera that is here. But at the end of the day, all that doesn't matter. It will still do the work. And also, the quality of selfies that are coming from the iPhone 17 Pro Max are far higher and better than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And when it comes to the videos, both phones can shoot Apple ProRes. They can almost do the same thing, but there's a new feature. Once you open the camera menu here, you will now see dual capture on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, meaning you can be taking videos with both the back camera and the front camera at the same time, which is something the iPhone 16 Pro Max cannot do. And Android users are having a fun time or a swell time laughing at iPhone users right now, because honestly, this shouldn't be a feature in 2025, because these are things that the Galaxy S3 from 2013 can actually do. And that's what we are having on the iPhone in 2025, and we're calling it a new feature. It's honestly not.